Hello, welcome back to Mrs. Torres' YouTube channel. There's one last little thing that I want to talk to in regards to I, and that is powers of I. What I mean by powers is I raised to exponents, right? So let's investigate this. I to the first, of course, that's just I, right? And remember, that means the square root of -1. What about I squared? Well, I is really the square root of -1, right? So we have the square root of -1 squared. These are opposite operations. They just cancel out. So the I squared is -1. What about I to the third? Well, now that we know what I squared is, we can break I to the third into I times I squared, which would be I times -1, or -I. What about I to the fourth? There's a few ways we can break I to the fourth down. I'm going to do I squared times I squared. We know I squared is -1, so that's -1 times -1, or +1. Let's do a few more. I to the fifth. Again, there's a few ways that we can break that up. I'm going to do I to the first times I to the fourth. That's I times I to the fourth, which is 1. So we're back at I. How about I to the sixth? Again, a few ways you can break it down. I'm just going to do I times I to the fifth. That's 5, sorry. So that's I times I, which is I squared, and that brings us back to -1. Let's do 2 more. I to the seventh. We can break it up. I times I to the sixth, which is I times -1, which is -I. We should be noticing a pattern here. Let's do one more. I to the eighth. Let's break it up a little different. Let's say it's I to the fourth times I to the fourth. So that's just 1 times 1, or 1. So our pattern is, it goes I, -1, -I, 1. I, -1, -I, 1. Over and over and over again as your exponents get larger. So I, -1, -I, 1. So we can use this pattern to simplify things like I to the 30th. So of course we're not going to sit here and write I, -I, 1 until we get to 30, right? We need to think about how many times we go through this 4-number pattern. So we're going to take 30 and divide it by 4. That tells us how many times we go through this. If you do that in your calculator, you get 7.5. There's a few ways that we can think about this. This means we go through the pattern 7 times and then half of 4. So that's 7 full times through and then 2 more. So 1, 2. So our answer would be -1. Another way that you can think about it is 30 divided by 4 is 7. And what's our remainder? Well, 4 times 7 gives us 28. How many more to get to 30? 2. So that gives us a remainder of 2. Now, of course, this 0.5 is remainder 2 as well, because 0.5 times 4 is 2. So either way, you're getting a remainder of 2. So the remainder is what tells us where in the pattern we are. If we have remainder 1, our answer is I. If we have remainder 2, it's -1. If we have remainder 3, it's negative I. And if it divides evenly by 4, that'd be remainder 0. Your answer is 1. So what about this one? I to the 51st. 51 divided by 4 is 12, remainder 3, because 4 times 12 is 48. How many more to get to 51? 3. So then we look up here. Our answer would be negative I. All right, try these on your own. I to the 212 and I to the 49. Try those, pause the video, and come back. All right, welcome back. 212 divided by 4 is exactly 53. That means we're going to go the whole way through this pattern. So our answer would just be 1. 49 divided by 4 is 12, remainder 1, because 4 times 12 is 48. How many more to get to 49? Just 1. So remainder 1 is I. All right, that's it for today.